to actually, how do you know like how to put a distraction in its proper place? Because I'm just like I said a few minutes ago, right? My phone is gonna buzz about 10 times before we finish this broadcast. I already know it
Mhm.
is. It's gonna buzz.
Mhm.
I'm gonna look at it. I'm gonna try not to look at it. I'm in meetings. I turn it on silent. It's still, how do you know how to put them in their proper place?
Well, I have several ways. This is not an exhaustive list, but I have several ways. So when you think about, and I've heard many ministers, and you probably have too, use the Martha and Mary story, the parable in Luke 10:38 through 42, about how Martha, first of all, received Jesus into her house, right? She received him. And then, but she was busy with much serving. So that would be me, right? I'd have guests over. My husband and I used to entertain a lot, particularly with different ministries that have everybody over at the end of the year. So by the time the guests come, I should be sitting down or mingling and talking with the guests. Nope, I'm wiping the counter and still kind of looking and making sure all the beverages are in place. And no, 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 no. So the one thing he said, Martha, you're cumbered, he said, with much serving, and that cumbered means you're distracted. You
Mm,
entered, you invited me into your house, and now you're distracted, distracted with a
mm,
lot of things. So if you're going to receive something that that requires your attention, or that you've decided need your attention right now, we have to do the Mary thing. He said, but Mary chose the good part. So, one
mm.
key to dealing with distraction is to make a choice. Another word for to choose is to decide. And I'm sure I've said this in other podcasts, but to decide is to cut off all other options. And it takes real mental fortitude. It takes a fortitude and a focus and a real desire to cut off the other options and say, you know what? I know I could be looking at my phone. I know I could be reading this text message and looking at the TV at the same time, but I choose to do this other thing. And so there are times when I'll go put my phone in another room on purpose so that I don't look down at it when it lights up, right? Then I found out with my Apple Watch would light up. So then I would just cover it up with my sleeve or turn it the other way. You fight for it. You make a conscious decision, you choose, and then you base your actions on that choice.
Another thing too, I feel about distractions, like we are so distracted by these devices. We don't even understand how we are checking out on life with our families. And someone said to me, she said, Audrey, when my husband comes through that door, everything stops, right? She said, I never says, wait a minute. I said, really? She says, no, I never do. She said, everything stops when you come through the door. And I said, I'm really bad about that. My husband will come like, I'm gonna call you right back. This is me. I'm gonna call you right back. He like, okay. He never says anything. He just says, okay. But
Right.
she's like, no, you're not supposed to do that. I'm like, really? And
Right.
I do that a lot, but I find myself that I try not to do that anymore. So what kind of strain does that have on relationships? Because we're so distracted. I'll see people playing games all day long, and their spouse is sitting right next to them. They don't even talk to them. They're just playing
Hmm.
games. So what
Hmm.
does that do to relationships?
So I'm glad you brought that up too. And to your friend's credit, I'm glad she shared that with you because that's the same for me. When my husband comes all home, all bets are off. It's done. I cut off my phone calls and everything. But the thing is, it damages other relationships. It robs people of your time, your presence, of the joy that you bring, the insight that you bring. And so the fact of the matter is that our distractions do affect other people. And the question you want to ask yourself is, who is paying the price for my distraction?
Mm,
Somebody's paying the price for my overcommitting my mind, and my attention. Someone's paying the price. And who is it? And if we
mm.
ask them the questions, and even though your husband may not say anything, I'll bet he's put off by it.
I'm sure he is, and he doesn't say a lot of things. And when he does say something about stuff, I have to stop in my track. Like, wait a minute, because he doesn't
Yeah.
say anything. But when she said that to me, I didn't even think about that. In my mind, I know he knows I'm busy. So if I say, "Hey, I'm gonna call you right back," or I text him like I'm on a call right now, things like that, he understands. But it never occurred to me that my distractions could actually be harming my relationship with him. That never even
Mhm.
occurred to me because it's just the way of
Mhm.
life for me. So
Mhm.
I think that's pretty interesting. So what are some other steps that people can take to make sure they manage their distractions and make sure they identify, a distraction from a real event that has to be done? Because I think procrastination. I don't want to do this. So I'm gonna go clean the toilet. I don't want to do this. I'm gonna go wash clothes. I did that earlier. I'm not gonna even lie. I did it. I was something I was supposed to do. I don't wash the clothes, y'all. So when I do the laundry, I'm really trying to run from something. And so I was like, I'm looking like I'm gonna go do the laundry because that's we decided he likes to do the laundry, and I was like, I'm
Yes.
gonna go do the laundry. And he'll come home and he'll say, Doctor Chin, you did the laundry? I'm like, yeah, I did the laundry. So in his mind, it's probably like I did something good, but I was really running from something else. So I just use that as a
Yes.
distraction.
So, this is what we have to know too. We know what an emergency is. Everyone knows an emergency. Our bodies are literally created to deal with an emergency. Now, so what happens is your adrenaline starts to flow. Your cells start to move and your muscles start to move to where your adrenaline flows. That's not the same as anxiety. Anxiety is thinking about something that could happen, that may happen, and causes a fear. So when there's something that really needs to be dealt with, there are questions that you can ask yourself very quickly. Is this something that I must handle right now? What's going to happen if I don't handle this right now? That's the main thing I ask myself right away. What will happen and what can happen if I don't deal with this right now? That's the first question you ask yourself. If the house is not going to burn down, no one's going to die, no one's bleeding, and it doesn't have to be done. If nothing bad is going to happen, then go on and focus on what you're called to focus on. But another Bible story that I use. That's why I love scripture because it teaches me how to behave and how to respond to certain things. But in Second Kings in chapter 2, there was the two prophets Elijah and Elisha, his servant, and Elijah kept telling Elisha, the servant, stay here. I have to go this place, and stay here. I have to go the other place. And he was saying basically, as long as you live, I'm not going to leave you. I'm going to keep following you. So here come these other little prophets, these other little distractions. Your mask is going to be taken away from your head. This is going to happen, and that's going to happen. And he turned and he said, hold your peace. He said, I know, but hold your peace. In other words, shut up.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you have to speak to that mountain. You have to speak to that distraction. And listen, if you end up talking to the laundry and say, listen, I'm not getting ready to deal with you right now. You have to sometimes speak out loud. New Testament calls speaking to that mountain and it shall be moved. You can speak to a distraction even in your mind and let that thing know you're not going to take up residence right now.
Yeah.
So you speak
I
to it.
was in a meeting yesterday. I was in a meeting with another pastor yesterday, and I was asking him. He was saying how you have to pray things through, and I said to him, what do you say to the person who say, I've prayed, I've talked to the mountain, and the mountain is still in my way. I've prayed, and that same thing is still there because even though we know we can pray, we know we can speak to it, and all the things that the Bible teaches us, we still find ourselves struggling because things don't happen when we think they should happen. So, in saying that, when you tell that person, you can speak to the mountain and have it move, and that person, well, I did that, it didn't happen. What do you say to that person? Because I know that happens a lot.
So we're talking about two different things here. When we're talking about a distraction, you don't have to deal with the distraction. You can speak the distraction and tell it, I'm not going to deal with you. When we're talking about
Okay.
faith and prayer, right? There's a woman in the Bible, the scripture calls it a woman who prayed with importunity, right? She kept going
Mm-hmm.
to the unjust judge and she kept going back and she kept going back. And scripture says, let me answer her lest she weary me. So there are several reasons I would say why that mountain won't be moved. Ask yourself, what am I doing or not doing that's not causing this mountain to move? Am I doubting? Because scripture always says if you're wavering, if you're down, and don't expect to receive anything. If you're waffling
Mm-hmm.
and you're really not believing and you're lacking faith, then why should the mountain move? You don't believe it yourself, right? You're doubting
Mm-hmm.
yourself. Another thing is God has his own timing, and his timing is perfect. His timing is perfect. And sometimes we're learning lessons when things don't happen when we want them. That we're learning patience. We're learning endurance. We're learning fortitude. We're learning how to build our faith. We're learning how to let it go. So there are many, many reasons why when we pray to say to this mountain, be removed, and it shall be removed, there are many reasons why it doesn't.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
God's not a
Okay.
genie in a bottle.
He's not a genie in about that. Well, that's true. That is true. So you got distractions. You have these phones. You have the kids. You have the family. I'm overwhelmed. What do I do to manage all of this? Because I feel like we have we have guilt on top of all of that, right? So you got guilt on top of the distractions. You got all of that, all piled together, making us all
Yes.
nuts.
Yes. Yes. Another key is to ignore it. If it's not
Mm.
something, if nothing bad is going to happen, you can ignore it. And not a lot of mothers won't believe this, and a lot of mothers don't practice this and wonder why they're upset. But we know babies who aren't able to talk yet will cry. They'll cry if their diaper's wet, right? Infants, they'll cry if they're hungry or if they're sleepy. And so when you feed them, they quiet down, you know they're hungry. If they quiet down when you've changed the diaper, you know that's what the issue was. If you hold a baby and hold a baby and hold a baby and then lay the baby down and starts crying, you know it was crying because it wants to be held. So how do you teach the baby how to stop crying just because it wants to be held? You have to ignore it. You have
Mm.
to let the baby cry.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that's hard for people, even if you do it in increments at a time. So one you choose, one you speak to it and say, hold your peace. Another one you ignore. So let me just share this with you too. We have to learn how to think. These are some of the tips that help deal with distractions. We have to learn how to think. And we already know that there are certain scenarios that seem to take our focus off. We already know the children, you named them. Some of them are the children, some of the spouses. Sometimes it's dinner that needs to be done, that take our focus off what we're going to be doing. So, in other words, think ahead of time. What things tend to distract me when I want to read my book? Well, my cell phone going off. So, if you know that's a distraction, don't bring your cell phone in the room or in the place where you know you're going to read the book because you need to study, right? So you have to
Right.
think and you have to develop a plan for that. You apply techniques after you think about it. What are the scenarios that create distractions for me? Another thing, if distractions come in your mind, I keep post-its all over. I have little notebooks, and I have a phone, but I also have a little notebook. I write it down, deal with it later. Then I pick up my list of post-its, I go through it, deal with, crumble them up. So you can write it down. You can think that about the certain scenarios, right, where distractions come. You can write it down. The other thing that you can do is to set your atmosphere. Before you
Mm.
begin
What do you mean by
something,
that? What do
say
you
that
mean by
again.
that? Set your atmosphere.
You create an environment conducive to what it is you want to do. If it's cooking, if it's writing, if it's reading, if it's projects, if you're a crafty person, you get all your things that you need. You get your music going, you get your comfortable chair, you get your sweats on and your comfy clothes, and whatever it is, whatever music you like, you set that atmosphere because everything happens in an atmosphere. Babies are conceived in an atmosphere, right? People have a good time in an atmosphere. We put
Mm-hmm.
candle lights on the dinner table to create atmosphere. So when you set the atmosphere, there's less chance that you're going to stop doing what you're doing to deal with a distraction. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense, and I think that's so important because I think about like I used to really be on Sundays is like my rest day, right? I rest on the seventh day, at least I'm supposed to, but I used to really rest on the seventh day. So I would set my atmosphere. I take all my magazines and all my books, and I would go to the living room, and that's where I would stay, and I would bring all of them with me. And I haven't done that, Dr. Chen, in so long. I can't even
Mm,
tell you the last time I've done that. And
yeah.
that used to give me so much peace and joy. And I haven't done it probably for 5 years.
Wow.
Nope.
Really? You owe it to
Nope.
yourself. See, you owe it
Yeah, I
to
haven't.
yourself for several reasons. So that you can have some peace in and unto yourself. So that when your husband does come in, he meets the best Audrey. He's got the best Audrey, right? She's cool, calm, and collected. She's had her time. The children get the best mom, or get the best, the grandbabies get the best grandma because you've taken care of Audrey. You've
Hmm.
taken care. So you've got to take care of yourself. Light candles. That's another way you set atmosphere, because this is what I know of the five senses. Whenever you appeal to the most of the five senses, your atmosphere is good. When the feelings and and the smell and the sound and the touch, right? If it's the comfy clothes, if it's the candle, if it's the right music, right? All of those things. Um, when you deal with the five senses, your atmosphere is really conducive to anything that you want to make happen then. Appeal to
Hmm.
all five of those senses, right? So you can
Hmm.
also set a schedule. And this is what people say, oh, I don't prioritize your schedule. Schedule your priorities.
Say that again.
Don't prioritize your schedule. Schedule your priorities.
Mm.
Schedule your priorities.
Wow.
I have a lot going on. We all do. My calendar is pretty much set out for almost up until September 2023, right? But I
Yep.
always ask my husband, when do you want to go here? When do we like to go this? And so I'll move it around that, what he wants to do, what vacation time, when he gets his vacation time, when he's working 6 days. If I have to move something around, I move it around. You know why, Audrey? Because I need him to know you are the number one priority, not my ministry, not my ministry, not my ministry.
Mm. Mm.
So
That's
don't
a big one.
prioritize your schedule. Yeah. Schedule your
That's a big
priorities.
one. And I think about some people who use their work as a way to as a distraction because they are trying to run away from something that they should be focused on. And I've heard somebody actually tell me that, and every time they do it, like I see it, I don't even know if they realize it, but they told me that's what they
Mhm.
used to do. It's like I used to work because I did not want to face this person. I had a friend one time, he told me, he said he was in a relationship, Dr. Chin, and he would literally ride around the block until he saw the light go off in his house because he didn't want to face the person he was in a relationship with. So when the lights went off, he would go in the house. And I said to him, and he's such a nice person. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah, she was going to be arguing. I didn't want to hear it. I done worked all day. He's like, that's all she did was argue. He would ride around the block until the lights went off and then he would go in the house.
Wow.
I thought that was crazy.
Yeah, that's a bigger
So
problem.
people use work, they use all these different little things to avoid life. I feel
Yes.
like to avoid life.
Yes. That's true, which tells you that your life is out of order. So how long are you
Mm-hmm.
going to ride around the block? How long are you going to do that? How long? Because that doesn't get to the root of the problem. That's like mowing over a dandelion. 2 days later, that dandelion is going to pop right back. It's popping right back up. Right?
Right.
You ever mow over dandelions? They just keep popping back up. So it's not until you dig that thing up at the root, that can actually be dealt with. And it was obvious that he wasn't making the hard decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you
Yeah.
riding
He
around the
finally made
block?
them.
Thank God. Yeah, that's no
He
way to
finally
live.
made them, but he told me because I'm always trying to play matchmaker. Well, you probably don't know, but I'm always trying to play matchmaker. I call myself Cupid. I keep failing though. And I was trying to play matchmaker, and I said to him, "What type of woman do you like?" And he said, "One that's going to support me." And I was like, "That's it." He's like, "That is it." And I thought that was crazy. And then he told me that story, and he finally broke up with her. But I think it was so crazy that you would work 12-hour, 15-hour days and use that as a reason not to actually focus on, your relationship and your family because it's that painful that you would rather have distractions than to do that.
Yeah. So yeah, it's sad that when the right now is in place of the right, right? And you've heard that saying, Mr. Right or Miss Right won't show up until you get rid of Mr. Right now or Mrs. Right
Mm-hmm.
now. And so I'm glad that, if the relationship needed to be severed, it needed to be severed. And apparently, they both had some other issues that they needed to deal with. Um, Another tip that I find that helps with dealing with distractions is setting a timer. So for me, I would get easily distracted. I got easily bored, right? Especially with exercise. And if I was doing the same thing, I'm like, I'm never going to go down and do this. I walk on the treadmill. I'm outside walking. I can walk for the full hour. On the treadmill, I'm not going to do that. You know why? Because it's easy for me to get off, ride the treadmill. If I'm outside walking and my car is way on the other side of the park, I've got to come back to my car. On the treadmill, I can use the laundry. I got to go fix this. I got to go paint this and do that as a distraction. So I set a timer. And that's how I dealt with, I know it was signs of ADD. I don't care what anybody says. So I would set my timer, get in my Chase lounge, start reading, and I'd set my phone timer for 5 minutes. I couldn't move for 5 minutes. I actually had to do that in increments of 5 minutes until I could actually sit there for an hour. Now I can sit there for over an hour, whatever it needs. But setting a timer, begin with small increments on a regular basis. And that will help you to deal with the distractions. But at least you have given yourself, you set a goal. When you let that timer go up, you set little goals for yourself.
Exercise is tough for me too. I set my phone too for a timer. So what, my Fitbit is connected to my phone and it tells me every hour I have to get up and move 250 steps, right? And
Right.
sometimes I look at it and I'm like, yeah, I'm working on a project. I can't stop right now. And then a whole hour has gone, so I'm 250 steps behind. However, because okay, so the person that's got the timer set, they're gonna ignore the timer because I've done that. I do that a lot, and so I'm like, I don't feel like going down the stairs. I keep working. I got to finish this project, so I'm ignoring the timer. So that person, and I guess at the end of the day, Dr. Chen, it's like what's really important to you, right? Because if I say I want to be healthier and I'm ignoring the timer that I've set for myself to remind me to get up and move 250 steps, do I really want to be healthier if I'm not looking at the timer, if I'm turning it off when it goes off? Do I really want to do that? I
Yes, you
think
do
that's it.
really want
I
to
think
be
that's a good
healthy.
question.
You do. You absolutely want to be healthy, but we don't get what we want. We get what we prepare
Mm,
for, and we get
mm,
what we execute in, right?
mm.
So that number one
Yeah.
key, what we said, the key number one was to choose. So you made a choice
Mhm.
to ignore, and every choice, you chose, you know,
I'm putting all my dirty laundry out there. Yes, yes,
we're
all
helping
of
each
it.
other though. But in every choice and every decision has a consequence. So 250 steps. So recently I invested in a Veridesk, right? The one where you could stand up and
Mhm,
actually do the work. I only paid
mhm.
$100 for it. It's the best thing I've ever done for myself. Then I bought the little mat
Wow.
because I have the same thing where it tells me to step, stand or do steps. So I can stand and just do 250 steps like this while I'm still typing or while I'm still reading. Uh,
Mm,
so you find strategies to get what's really important to you. That is the same as the difference between prioritizing your schedule and scheduling your priorities. No, we don't
mm,
get what we want. We get what we work for and we get what we prepare for.
mhm,
Right? Does,
mhm.
does that make sense?
That totally makes sense. I love the whole Veridesk thing because I could definitely do that. I
Yes.
like that. I
Yes.
like that.
Yes. You can put on your music and you can dance to your music, whatever it is, right? Right with the parent.
Yeah.
It makes a huge, huge difference. And it is an investment in your health. Think about it. That's an investment in your health that's going to get you moving. But it's obvious. See, this is the one thing that's a dichotomy, or if you will, a catch-22 with what you're sharing. You're really focused.
Mhm,
You're a very focused person. And
mhm.
yet you're sharing with us that you too deal with distractions. Isn't that,
Yes.
you get what I'm saying? So there's
Yeah.
some people who wish they were as focused as you were, who doesn't want to stop to do the 250 steps because I've got to finish this. Whereas others say, you know what, I got to finish this, but I didn't finish it because I yielded and gave way to the distractions.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So you got to find that happy medium. You have to decide. And for me, I do this at least every 6 months. I look at my plate. I have a whiteboard in my office. I look at my plate, so to speak, on my whiteboard. And I write down the things that are a priority for me. And sometimes the numbers change. Sometimes
Hmm.
number 6 becomes number 1. They have to move now because something has happened where the priorities change. So unfortunately for us, our health doesn't come a priority until we get an um, unsatisfactory or negative medical report. Then
Hmm.
that moves to priority number 1, doesn't it?
Yes, that is true. That is true.
Yep. Yes. So we would rather be responsive and planners than to be reactive because something has made me have to change. And if it's a negative something, we have to some degree we can control that. To
Hmm.
some degree, we really can control that. Um, and then there are times when we have to plan to play. Schedule some fun during the breaks. Plan to go see a movie. Plan to go get dressed up. Plan, to go bowling or whatever it is. When you plan those things, when you schedule those things and don't ignore that schedule, you know what? I can always go to the movies next week. There's always going to be a ripple effect.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
always going to be a ripple effect. And that's when you're asking yourself again, who's paying the cost for my distraction? Somebody's paying
Mm.
the cost for this. It's
Yeah.
not ever going to be for free.
Yeah. And I think sometimes people don't even know that other people are part of their distractions because I think about what you
Mm,
said. Like my husband and I, we do bowl in the league. Like that's our fun thing. Like we have to do something. But if I'm working and I say to him,
mhm,
I don't think I'm gonna make it tonight, right? If I'm not sick and I'm just like backing out, I know he may feel some kind of way because like why not? And I have never done that. So I don't do that. If I don't go bowling and I've only missed one in 3 years that I haven't
mhm.
gone, it's because I was sick. But
Yeah.
you don't think about the distractions and how that affects other people because you just focus on what you're trying to do or not do. So I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do this. So you're not thinking about that person. And I think that's an interesting thought to even think about. Like even for me, I remember I think I've probably told you this, but I asked my daughter, um, God, this was a long time. I asked her a couple of weeks ago. She was talking about relationships with parents and things like that. And I said to her, you kind of scared to ask. So what is it that I didn't do? And I think she was kind of scared to answer me. And she said, "Well, the only thing I wish is that you were just there a little bit more." And in my in my mind, I was there, but I was working all the time. And I remember her, I think it was her third grade teacher, told me, they called me into school because her grades were falling. And I said to them, "Why?" And they said she said you work all the time. And I'm like, I felt horrible. I felt horrible because she was missing out on that part. And that was third grade, I think. But she told me that now she's 31 years old, and she still says to me that was an issue for her. And I think that still kind of is like an issue because I'm
Mhm,
working and I like what I do. And so I
mhm,
have to literally look at my watch and say, "Oh my God, I didn't talk to them today. Let me call them real quick," and I will
mhm,
stop. So,
mhm.
but I realize that's something I have to do because that still may affect her and my granddaughter and my husband. So you have to. It's so much that we have to think about, Dr. Chin, and trying to compartmentalize all this stuff and make it all make sense. And weed and all. It's just a lot. It's a lot.
It is a lot.
It's a lot.
Um, it is a lot. But how much of it is necessary? So
Mm.
how much of it is necessary? And it's good that you like what you do, but don't you like your daughter also?
I do.
Right.
I
I know
do.
the answer to that. It was rhetorical, right? So you like your
Yeah.
daughter also. I'm going to share a story, and I hope this helps. So this was years ago, but I loved study. I love studying the Bible. I love doing the research of the atlas, and I'm just wired that way. And we're often
Hmm.
wired in a way that tells you what your purpose is. But anyway, I was upstairs studying, and I mean, I had been up there for hours, almost all day. And the Holy Spirit spoke to me and said, "Go sit down and watch a movie with your husband." And I'm like, "No, I know that wasn't God talking to me, right?" So I heard the voice again, go sit down next to your husband and watch the movie." So I'm like, "Oh, I'm sitting, putting my stuff together." I get halfway down the hallway, and the Holy Spirit says, "Go back and get your attitude right." Because I already knew how I was going. Well, I already knew I was going to go sit down there like this, you know. So
Mhm.
I would have
Mhm.
been there, but not present. So
Mhm.
I went back and I repented. I felt so bad. So I go down, I sit next, and he's watching some movies that I didn't really care for. And I mean, God was dealing with me. He was really, really, really dealing with me until I did it more and more and more. Because oftentimes when they miss us, they won't say anything. And I'm going to tell you what else happens. They'll find something else to fill that void. And it's not always something good or something healthy.
Yeah.
We all
Yeah.
have parenting gaps. All
Yeah.
parents have parenting gaps.
Yeah.
Ours did, theirs did, we will, our children will. There's always going to be parenting gaps. Um, but people are always more important than businesses and ministry and things. Our relationships are always more important because at the end of the day, the business is not going to comfort you. The business is not going to give you a hug. The ministry is not going to say, "I love you," right? They're not going to be one to hold your hand to go pick up the medicine and make you some soup when we're in need of comfort. And it is said that human beings need at least 10 touches a day to feel alive,
Mm.
to at least 10 touches a day. And so
Wow.
I make it a point. Yes, it even if it's just, "Hey, how you doing?" A kiss on the cheek, that makes a person, those endorphins are enlivened in people. And sometimes, see, nowadays it's a couple of text messages. After a while, you stop reading them.
Right. Right. Right.
So distractions really have cost us some real, real relationship issues.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a friend call me yesterday and she said, I haven't talked to you in so long and I feel so bad. And I was like, well, I know you're busy. She's like, I know, but that's not an excuse. She said, and I said to myself, I have to get better. I know I have to get better. And and I know she's busy. So I didn't think anything about it. She's like, yeah, but that's not an excuse. We should have talked by now. And she said, whenever you ask me to do something, whenever she asks me to do something, I always do it. And she said, you asked me to do something 2 months ago and I haven't done it. I have to get better. And I swear to you, I hadn't even thought about it. I asked her, and that was it. I didn't think about it. But she was like, something told me to call you today and say I have to get better. And I think that's so important that we must honor our relationships and the people that we care about. And sometimes you kind of get lost in it, and you don't. But it's not that you don't care. I think, but I feel
Right.
like you said, they need to know that you care. And I know, for
Yes.
especially in couples, I think in relationships, I told my husband, it was so funny. We had a conversation about 2 weeks ago, and so we had, I don't know if you ever did, and I know this is totally off distractions, but we had this thing called love languages. And so I
Yes.
know his, and it was so funny. We had a discussion, and I told him, I was like, I know what your love language is, and I started to tell him what it was, and he's like, well, don't you want that too? I was like, no. He's like, I thought everybody wanted that. I was like, no, everybody doesn't want that. That's what
Right.
you want.
Right.
But that's
Yes.
because I took the time to figure that out, so I'll know how to handle the relationship. So I
How to
know that
love
I'm
on
letting
him.
how right. And but he was like,
Yeah.
"Don't you want that?" I was like, "No, I don't want that. That means nothing to me." He could not believe that. I was like, "No, it means nothing to me. Nothing.
Not how
You
you're
could never do
wired.
it. I wouldn't. It wouldn't phase me one bit." But I think just being able to be there for those people in your life and let them know that, you know what, you are, and not making them feel like they're a distraction, because that's bad too. You can make them feel like they're a distraction.
Oh,
Yeah, I think that's the thing that put fear in my heart about my daughter. I didn't want her to feel like she was a distraction to me, because she wasn't.
yes. Oh, that is
Yeah.
powerful. That is powerful. And that's how we sometimes we respond to people. But and so that brings me to an Ezra. There's a story, or when you read the account in Ezra chapter 4, where they went to go rebuild the temple and all of that. Um, there was uh, there was a king where God stirred up in his heart to let the people go back and rebuild this temple. And as they were rebuilding, they had laid the foundation and everything. And the Bible says that the adversary came, who had hired counselors to frustrate their purpose. And see,
Mm.
whether you're a Christian or not, there is a real spiritual enemy. We call him Satan or the devil. And oftentimes, the adversary of our soul, our mind, our will, and our emotions will cause us or hire, if you will, counselors to frustrate your purpose. So when you do a word study of frustrate, it means to place into neutral. So if you think about it, if your car is in neutral, it's neither going forward, neither is it going backward. When you go to a car wash, they tell you to put it in neutral and they are guiding your car, right? So when
Mm.
you're
Mm-hmm.
when counselors are hired, even in the spirit realm, to frustrate your purpose. What is your purpose? Your purpose is to be a helpmeet to your husband. What is your purpose? To mother your children. What is your purpose? To manage your business, right? But there's Ecclesiastes tells us there's a time and a season to every purpose. It's not 24/7.
Mm.
It's not 7 days a week. There's a time for your purpose. There's a season. So
Mm-hmm.
when something comes to frustrate that purpose, it's messing up all your relationships. And that's its purpose.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So we have to be discerning.
Oh.
We have to be perceptive and pay
Mm-hmm.
attention.
Wow.
There are
That do that.
signs. Say that again.
I said that's his purpose to come and mess you up. I heard that. Like, wow.
Yes, yes, yes. And we have to be mindful and stop and say, you know what? I really would like to continue doing this, but I'm sensing that my husband may just want a hug. Let me just walk up to him and just hug him and ask him how was his day, or what you've been thinking about lately, or what's going on with you, and whatever it is, or call your granddaughter and say, come on over and let's color in the coloring book. Whatever it is, may not be something you enjoy, but when we love people, we sometimes do things that we don't necessarily, that's not number one on our list, but we love the people. And distractions
As you were
cannot
saying
get in the
that,
way of love.
I'm smiling because if I asked my husband, "What's going on with you?" If I said something, he would like, "What you want? What happened?" Because I think I don't say it enough. So if I said to him, "Hey, what's on your mind? What's on your heart?" Right? He'll think something is wrong, Dr. Chin. And I'm laughing because I know he would. He'll think that's a trick question. He'll think
So
that's a
why
trick
would he
question or
think?
something. Why you asking me
So that's a
that?
problem.
That's
Right.
but because I
So what you said he would say to me, okay, what you want, because he knows it's not
yeah,
normal for me to ask him, what do you, in other words, I'm showing you that I care.
yeah. He he would certainly think something was wrong. What's wrong?
Yeah.
Why you say that? Why you ask me that? And I'm like, I'm just asking. Like, I don't want any things. Nothing is wrong. But if I came to him, I could tell you right now, his guard would go up like this, and it is like, what you want? What's happening? Oh my God, that is too funny. And as you were saying that, I'm laughing because I know him. You know,
We
and
gotta count the cost.
he's very low key. So for him to he'll look at me like, what happened? What's going on? What you need? And I'm like, I don't need anything. I'm just asking a question. Like, how's everything going? And that's
Yeah.
bad because if he has to say that to me, I suck. But I'm gonna get better.
Wow.
Listen, I'm gonna get better, y'all.
You
I'm
are.
gonna get
You
better.
are. And I want you to
I
go
am.
sit down and get your magazines, girl.
I am. I am.
That's for
I
you.
spent a whole day. And it's so crazy. I used to love. I would go to Barnes and Noble and just spend all Sunday in Barnes and Noble, just get a table full of magazines, or I would take the magazines and go downstairs and sit on the couch, and that just brought me so much peace. And I just haven't done that in about a good 5 years. And that was my thing. Like everybody knew Sunday don't bother me. This is what I do on Sundays. And they wouldn't bother me. He would cook. I would taste
Yeah.
stuff half the time. And that's what I did. And I don't know, I just got so wrapped up in what I was doing, and producing my show that I forgot about that. And the crazy thing is I actually miss it. You would think that if you miss
Oh,
something, you would let everything else become a distraction for the thing that you miss. But people do. And I wonder why is that though?
but you took time because you understood there was a time and a season to build your business.
Mm,
There was a time and a season for you to do that, to work on that and to build that and to build the clientele and to learn new techniques. And so there's also a time and a season to back off a little bit. You can say to yourself, what bad is going to happen if I take a day off from this? What good can happen if I take a day off from this?
yeah.
Because it's all an investment.
Yeah.
It's an investment.
Yeah. I know y'all think I'll be on her getting counseling, but she say things that trigger things that I have to ask questions about, and so, and it's not, I'm not trying to make it about me. It's just that she'll say something and I'm like, that's a good thing. I gotta ask a question about that. So that's just me, the interviewer, who always is thinking like the next thing to ask, because that's a habit. So it's not like her sessions are not about me. They just happen to be this have to be me talking about my stuff. So thank you for allowing me to even ask these questions, because
Yeah.
sometimes I know that people will watch the show and they'll watch it now, they'll watch it later, and they may have the exact same questions. They may not want to put their business out there like me. They may not want to put their dirty laundry out for the world to see, all their flaws, and but I'm used to doing it. So I thank you for letting me, always ask the questions that I don't even know I need the answer to until you say something. You know what I mean? Like, so thank you for that.
I'm grateful, and I got some feedback from it. Two people said to me, "I like that she does that," and they said, "I think it would be less interesting if you were just on there talking all by yourself." And I have to agree.
Wow. Really? Well,
Yes,
okay. Well,
yes.
listen, I got a lot of problems, y'all.
Stop it! Don't we all? The tables might be
Oh,
turned
God.
one day.
Oh, God. Okay, okay, okay.
It's
All
beautiful.
right. So listen, Dr. Chan, I'm through talking. Is there anything else you want to share?
I would like to say go to our website and look at the upcoming classes. We have a wonderful class coming up in November about your purpose, discovering your purpose, and how to write your mission statement. You can, and that is www.lindachin.com. If you're in the local or Douglasville area, Austell, Powder Springs area, Carrollton, we have a women's Bible study. We're going back into the building in January, and that is in Douglasville at a local church. So you can go to www.cwitn.us. That's our Bible study ministry. We have classes. You can register on eventbrite.com for the Purpose, Discover Your Purpose. That's in November. And your Kingdom Citizenships, that's the class in December. But go just check us out and see some of the resources that we have available.
What was the other one? CWIN?
CWITN.us.
ITTN.US.
Yes.
Okay.
CWITN, Christian Women in Training Network. Yeah. It's a bunch of us.
Okay. Got it.
Yes. Thank you.
Listen,
Beautiful.
I hope that Dr. Chin is blessing you guys as much as she's blessing me. And listen, go to her website. That's it's scrolling there. Pick one. She has three. Pick one. She has a lot to offer. Her wisdom is bar none the best I've gotten in a long time. And I talk to people all the time. We all need somebody we can talk to. But when I come on here and I'm talking to her, and I'm really not coming on here to ask questions about myself. For real, I'm not. But it just happens that way. And sometimes you just don't really know what you don't know about your own self to somebody like, oh, that's
Yes.
me. That's me. I remember Dr. Chen, and I'm gonna cut it soon, but I just gotta tell you this quick story. I remember one time, it was 2011. TD Jakes was on Oprah's TV network. She had just launched OWN, and he was on there. And he was talking to a group of women, and he was talking. They were saying, so I was doing something. I was multitasking. I was doing something else. So I was listening though, and everything he was saying, everything they were saying, I'm like, wait a minute, that sounds like me, right? I didn't even know that I had these issues until I heard these women talk, until I heard TDJ's talk, and I realized I had all these daddy issues. If you had asked
Mm.
me that, I would have been like, no, no, I don't have that. But the more he talked and the more they talked, I realized that's what it was. So what mine was, people have all different kind of things when their father's not in their lives.
Right.
They have all kind of relationships that don't work out. That wasn't me. I was the other
Right.
person. I was the
Right.
person that wanted to be a success so he could see it. So I did everything big. I started a business. It started off really tiny. I made it really big. Everything
Mhm.
was big because I wanted him to see me. And so,
Yes.
and I would keep building and so I didn't know that though. It was only him triggering that, and now on that show that I realized he's talking about me. And what that boiled down to was me not feeling like I was enough for my father. Literally.
Mm.
My father
Mm.
passed in 2005. 2005. When I got to his house, he lived in Vegas. He had a suitcase with every magazine article that had been written about me, every book I had wrote was in this suitcase. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. So he knew who I was. He appreciated that. And
Yeah.
then when
Yeah.
we were my brother and I were about to leave to go back to the airport to fly back to Jersey, there was a guy, he said, who are they? Right? We were about to get in the limousine. And someone said, oh, those are his kids from New Jersey. So the guy came up to us and he said, man, your father was so proud of you. My father had never said that to me, ever. He's like, he talked about you guys all the time. That's when I
Mm.
broke down and cried. I was on my way back to the
Mm.
airport to come home. So you never know what's going to trigger somebody. So I said all that to say, I hope that me being here co-hosting with Dr. Chin helps you live a better life because it's helping me. And sometimes I don't know what I don't know about myself until she says something like, oh yeah, that's me. So thank you again.
I
Thank you
so
again.
appreciate you, and I appreciate Noise Media. Go on and support the woman of God. Support her business. Listen, you might need to do a podcast. Something may be breaking off in you.
Listen,
Thank
God
you,
told me to help
Audrey.
the messengers, and I asked him, "Who are the messengers, Lord? You need to send them to me
Mm.
because I don't know who they are." He told me to help them. He told me, Doctor, he said, "Listen, help the messengers." And I'm like, "The messengers?"
Wow.
He said, "Help the messengers," and I said, "Okay." So one just showed up again. Like one showed up recently. I'm like, "Okay, that's one." So listen, if you know you got a message that's supposed to be out there, go to Noise Media, go to Noise
Yeah.
Podcast Network, and find out more about how I can help you launch your podcast. Thank you, Dr. Chin. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Audrey. I love you, and I'll see you in
Love
two
you too.
weeks.
All right. All right, guys. Listen, that's all we got for you today. We'll be back again in 2 weeks, same time, same place. Until next time, y'all keep it coming. Until next time, make it a great day. Bye, everybody.